This is our project's website, is BIOPLAT-EU address. Like other colleagues have presented, there are the main features. If we click on the WebJS tool, we are prompted to a dedicated page as a structure of the platform. And by clicking on this, we open a new tab with a quick disclaimer that will come to you and tell us what is the real purpose for BIOPLAT-EU. So the first thing we can see here is onto the left-hand side of our screen is a selection of different layers. Those of you who are familiar with GIS systems and the likes will probably recognize the opportunity to superimpose different layers by selecting them, let's say, individually. Now, when we select a first layer, the layer on the underutilized lands or the contaminated lands, another disclaimer comes up because, like we said, and like Manuela kindly presented, the science behind the production of these lands, which are our reference system, is very well expressed in the work done by the Joanneum Institute. And so we will warmly suggest you go and review the detailed reports, which are also linked in this disclaimer itself. So like I said, why do we have a layer system where we can turn on and off different layers? This is intended to give maximum versatility to the users. So a user can actually decide what's their entry point. For instance, if you are, as a user, a farmer, perhaps knowing whether your land is underutilized or contaminated land, or basically whether over your land you could start a biomass production for bioenergy purposes. So this is one entry point. A different entry point might be that of a bioenergy producing company, which instead may be interested in knowing where is the closest land where biomass can be produced as a feedstock to their existing processing plant, or a mix of the two. It could also be for research purposes that none of these are really relevant, but the opportunity of giving users various entry points, it's certainly interesting. So now let's pretend we are, or another important thing is, let's say that we want to know what is an area that is suitable based on the suitability of a crop that I, as a user, might be interested in exploring. And like we said, we have the opportunity to select different crop suitability coming from the various databases, like the GAIS, the Global Agroecological Zoning, as well as the JRC maps and others, depending upon the crop. So if we look at also these maps, another important aspect is that on this interface, we can pre-select different filter options. For instance, the type of a specific type of bioenergy processing plant, because we have mapped them by bioenergy processing, let's say bioenergy pathway. So we can either only have at screen those plants that already produced heat and power from solid biomass, for instance. So here we go, we have the black dots, or we can have all of them in the same picture, or we could also decide to hide this layer altogether. So once we've decided our area, for instance, we can now start moving towards maybe an area where we see there is a higher density of underutilized lands, according to the mapping exercise that we have done. And this is how the system allows us to start this analysis. For instance, let's say that we have a patch of land that is in this area right here, near this town, and we want to start selecting a reference point, which is the specific MOOC land. By selecting it, the system zooms in and it opens up the STEN engine, as you probably have seen. So now with the STEN engine, we have the opportunity to characterize better and further define the value chain that we're looking at. So now the first thing we notice is a few basic information about the size of this patch. And then we can start working either within the patch or adding multiple additional MUC patches. So if we want to start looking into this in particular, we have to open up the little toolbox that is associated with each MUC patch. And within this tool, we can, for instance, draw a field that is inside a specific patch, save it, and now the system only considers this small field, which in this case is only 13 hectares. And in case this selection is correct, then we can move on to further characterization of this little value chain, or perhaps we can step back and instead clean up this and restart our analysis. In case instead we want to add additional MUC patches in the same area or in a different area, we can tell the system to do so by allowing us to select an additional one, include it, and now as you can see, these two are summed together. So if we look at the total surface area interested, we can add even another one, this one for instance, select it, and the total is a sum of the surfaces of all of these areas. Now, once we have selected the reference biomass production sites, or in this case sites, we can start defining through agronomic information what are the main characteristics of the value chain. Clearly, the crop management system that we can select will affect both suitability and expected yields. But we should then keep into account that by signing in, we will have then the opportunity to change all of the characterizing and defining parameters for the crop management, as well as the location and let's say the development of the value chain itself. So the options that we can select are between low and high input level, which includes tillage, inputs in terms of fertilizers use, pesticides use, and so forth. And then we can select among a drop-down list of crops, which are already those that the guys that the other database that we have selected tell us are suitable in this area. Or, like Lorenzo said before, a specific user might be interested in testing a different crop that based on the suitability layers that we have already collected is not included. So in this case, there will be also the opportunity to select a slow tool, select from the complete list of crops. For instance, we can select a crop that was not included in the previous menu, and also we can characterize a given yield at this point, because our yields are based on available maps from guys, and like I said, JRC maps. But if we are forcing the system to assume that there is the opportunity to grow also a different crop, then we will have to include a given yield based on our experience. This is yield and dry matter per year per hectare. So it's, let's say, simple number just for ease of reference. As you can see now, the system shows us with the yellow underlining that there are parameters that we have changed, and we have told the system to use our reference parameters. And obviously, based on those data that we have inserted, the system already calculates the total feedstock production per year. Why is this useful? This is useful, first of all, to have an understanding of what we're talking about, but in the user case of a biomass processing plant owner, the owner may need to know what is the minimum amount of land for that specific crop to produce enough biomass for their own use. And then we can select the bioenergy pathway by simply selecting one of those available. Once the selection is accomplished, the system automatically selects the nearest bioenergy producing plant or processing plant from the list that we have already included in our system. But in case we want to force again this by because we know the existence of a biomass production plant that is closer to that one, or if we want to assume what if we build a new plant here in this location, again, we have the opportunity to tell the system to please look for the closest route to this area from the center of gravity of our biomass production site, and the system will calculate that automatically for us. Once we are happy with the selection, we accept the selection, and the system takes us to the first important aspect, which is the value chain data box. In this part of the tool, we can review a few basic information of the target area, which is the reference area interested by the municipalities that are involved in this production cycle. And so we can see information and statistics about the composition in terms of land use or land cover in this area. And then we can also go down to a more specific crop information. Again, you will find here information on the yield, which are circled in yellow because we inserted that. We can again change this value in case we made a mistake or we realize that we need for a specific purpose to amend this. But then we can also change other parameters, like for instance the evapotranspiration of this specific crop that we have selected. This information is by default what we could find in the literature, but a specific project might have more updated information and therefore change that, and so forth. We can go on market price and additional agronomic information like the amount of fertilizers per year and so forth. Once we're happy with this, if we are a advanced user, we can also look for those indicators that we have already identified as advanced indicators, those for which data it's not available as default, but we need to include information to actually compile this analysis. Otherwise, the analysis will not be profitable, will not be fruitful. Sorry. So we can now simulate, and in a matter of a second, the indicators, standard and advanced indicators, are presented at screen. So we can now review this, we can download the information, and then we can compare the different simulations down the road. So this is one user case. I invite everyone to go back on the website, the BIOPLAT-EU website, select the STEN tool, well, select the WebGIS tool, and then experience yourself what is available and what are the, let's say, the potentialities, what is the potential of this tool and of this platform.